Everybody, it's September 22nd, and this is my opinion of what is going on this week. Upon my initial exposure to the concept of the Adbusters Occupy Wall Street protest, I must say I was thrilled by the concept. The idea was simple enough, yet powerful and well organized, and promoted well enough for the campaign to be a potentially booming success. Thousands, possibly tens of thousands, gathering on Wall Street to oppose the corporate tyranny of the international economy, what could be better? However, upon actually witnessing the events unfolding at the demonstration, I began to have second thoughts. Many of the protesters involved at the event seemed to be somewhat misguided. Their signs, "We need free health care, stop giving to the rich and give back to the people," etc., presented to me a clear image of the sort of misdirection that this country and its many activist factions unfortunately face. It is an indication that these people not only are misled to believe that such measures would solve the problems of the world we must unfortunately face today, but about the entire cause of the problems in the first place. A friend of mine recently mentioned to me in conversation regarding the demonstration that he felt as though these people should be gathering at the Federal Reserve rather than on Wall Street. I responded to him that although I agreed with his stance, the presence of many of the headquarters of the private banks that uphold the largest shares in the Federal Reserve, companies like Citigroup, Chase, Goldman Sachs, and countless others, made the demonstration in essence an attack on the central banking cartel, broad in its spectrum though it may be. I soon learned that I was sadly mistaken. After watching a speech given by Roseanne Barr, a celebrity appearance to the event, I began to feel the cold grip of disappointment at the misdirection these people were unknowingly suffering from. Her cries for a new capitalism where the elderly actually get paid their retirement monies, as well as the cheers they garnered from the audience, made clear to me the sort of skewed perspective on this entire fiasco that so many other well-meaning people share. The very root of this misconception stems from the lack of economic understanding that impedes so many of our fellow men and women today. Even the statement, "get paid retirement monies," alone implies, first of all, that our currency, the dollar, is in fact money at all. The reality, of course, is that it is little more than counterfeited slips of paper backed by nothing in terms of a financial reserve system, printed out of thin air by a private money monopoly known as the Federal Reserve. It is crucial that those concerned about changing the direction of the future for the benefit of all would come to understand this very important concept. We can't have change, at least not real change, until the fraudulent system of currency creation that has fueled this entire economic system and its consequent collapse has been abolished. Sure, maybe we should bang and yell and howl for retirement reform if the money used to pay for retirement funds was actually worth anything and had been properly saved up, and if the government were to in fact be working on behalf of our best interests, which all the protesters have agreed not to be the case, hence their assembly on Wall Street in the first place. But for as long as this mandatory currency is able to be printed out of thin air and injected into the economy, we can never hope to recover or to rebuild such a system that the elderly or anyone else could possibly hope to be able to depend on for retirement stability or otherwise. Roseanne goes on further to state that we will have capitalism, but we'll also have socialism and education and basic compassion and healthcare. Again, perhaps this might be a possible solution, though I personally doubt it, if in fact we had not only the money to do so, but any money of real value whatsoever. And anyway, hasn't the merger of capitalism and socialism been what got us into this mess in the first place? And ignoring, painfully might I add, entirely her allusion to taking away free speech that was evidenced by her statement that being called a feminazi for saying these things would be considered treasonous in such a society, I'd like to encourage you to reassess the facts of the matter. Consider the logic. If a bunch of people at the top are making all of this money off of us, how are they doing so without us deliberately and directly handing this money over to them? It's simple. They control the money supply and/or receive tax-funded bailouts at our expense. Any system where a government uses money raised through taxes to bail out private businesses is hardly capitalism. In fact, it is the socialism of these incomes that goes to provide for a small group of privileged capitalist businesses that then reap the benefits of our labor. We work for us, but they get our money, pooled collectively together, and then shipped up to a few privileged people at the top. So in what sense would merging capitalism and socialism be either any different from how things presently are, or at all beneficial to the little guys on Main Street? In order for us to begin to reform the tyrannical and parasitical system under which society must operate, we must first begin to understand the nature of its methods of operation. We cannot expect the system to be tweaked correctly in order for it to work on our behalf. We must simply do away with it altogether. For as long as we have a monopoly on currency that is resulting in fraudulent counterfeited debt slips known as Federal Reserve notes, we can never have real change because the very people being demonstrated against from Wall Street will continue to profit from our efforts, and tremendously at that. By manipulating the money system, all of our profits as workers rises up to those at the top who have the ability to control this inflatable currency, and we will never be free from their clutches so long as we continue to use the heinous creation they've made up in an attempt to rob us all blind, blind being the key operative term in this instance. And no amount of kicking and screaming on Wall Street is going to change that. Perhaps the efforts of these individuals might be better directed then in finding an alternative currency to the dollar, based on some sort of reserve value, gold being a primary possibility, though I'm open to other alternatives. I recently saw a report on a town in Massachusetts that started an independent currency based on maple syrup, which is the town's main export. Or perhaps they could direct their energy into educating those still uninformed about the tyrannical banking takeover of the entire financial system. Measures such as those might serve to pave the way for actual change. But clamoring about on Wall Street, demanding free healthcare and retirement security is not only counterproductive, but is in fact hindering the possibility of overcoming this oppressive scenario by further serving to mislead those uneducated on the matter into thinking that these measures are potential solutions to our problems. It is only by upending the system entirely, through means of rejecting the use of this fraudulent funny money known as the dollar, that we can begin to reestablish order and prosperity among the masses. What good is the redistribution of counterfeit money, even if it is coming back down to us from the crooks at the top who got us into this mess? And what good is the merger of socialism and capitalism if it's apparent that such a combination of ideologies is what shapes such a corrupt system in the first place? I urge you to consider these points and to draw your own conclusions. How can we as a society ever move forward if we can't reform the basic root of all of our present-day strife? The unfortunate reality that not only our work, but any exchange between one another in business and trade serves only to profit those at the top who control the very currency we are legally forced to use. And how could we ever expect to be able to use the ideological tactics of such a scheme, this concept of a select entrepreneurial few profiting from the collective work efforts of the populace at large, to solve the injustices to which we are so clearly opposed? If enough people are upset about the present state of national and international affairs to gather on Wall Street and complain about it by the thousands, why aren't they informed enough to know that the conditions they're demanding were the very causes of the oppression they today so fervently oppose? Think about it. Perhaps I'm missing something. Anyway, thanks for listening if you made it this far.